once again, and welcome back. Today we're looking at what are your funniest D&D stories. So this might be long, I apologize. Spoilers for the Temple of Elemental Evil. So our group has been playing this module for quite a while, and a friend of mine joined the party. She was new to D&D, so she kept quiet during most of this, assuming we were experienced players and knew what we were doing. We stumbled across a hidden room in this evil temple that felt pure and holy. Inside we found another secret door leading to a dark room that felt overwhelmingly evil. Inside was a coffin with a vampire inside, a stake through his heart. For some reason we thought that if we removed the stake, he would spring to life and attack us. So we prepared all of our spells and weapons, removed the stake, and nothing. Since he didn't attack us, we decided to cut off his head, put it in a sack, and burn his heart with a flaming sword along with his body. My friend thought an easier solution would be to move the vampire next door into the holy room, but didn't say anything since she thought we would know what's best. We returned to the nearby village to tell the church what we had done and to show off the vampire's head. Unfortunately, the head we presented was that of the prince and high paladin of the realm. Shit. The evil room of the temple had an illusion spell on the prince, and had we just moved him into the other room, the spell would be broken and we would see his true form. Moral of the story: if you're new to D&D, never assume other players are smart. It's a good rule of thumb. All right, my player played a scion who had a spell which made his eyes light up like cars' headlights. He walked around a dark dungeon along with his group, killing everything in sight. While in the area where we knew there would be a boss nearby, he silently walked up to a door and looked through its keyhole while his eyes were still on. The boss monster saw the light coming through the keyhole and broke down the door, which hit the prison scion's head and knocked him out. Great. See, I had a friend who constantly used to play a priest. He'd find an elephant or a camel, something large, to use as a mount, ride it to death, cut the meat away for rations, and animate the carcass. As soon as he could afford to, he commissioned plate boarding for the skeletal animal, pad the interior of the ribcage with mattresses, and ride from inside it. Basically, he made himself the D&D equivalent of a tank/APC every damn time. That's a pretty clever idea. So let's see. So I was playing a bard. We were fighting a hydra. I was in the back singing, but our rogue had gone down. I wanted to tumble forward, stab the hydra, and heal the rogue after it died. I rolled for tumble, natural 1. Hydra takes a bite, natural 1. I rolled a hit, nat 20. Okay, I mean, you don't have to exaggerate. If it's a crit or a fail, it's fine. But it was ruled that I had tripped on a loose stone with my sword out and happened to trip into one of the waiting mouths of the hydra, sword first, such that I impale it and kill it. It was a grand total of 12 damage or so, low strength, non-magical, or weak magic, plus 1 sword. It was the only damage I did directly to the hydra. I was buffed solely for my party that fight. Interesting. So, okay. So we had this long-running campaign, and the DM tries not to affect storylines too much. He is amazing at description, but he likes to have the dice rolls and stats completely steer his creativity, as do most of us. We entered a situation he was obviously very excited about. It was a situation he created, which was designed to get us overpowered by an army, and each getting bags put over our heads and knocked out, with the plan of waking up somewhere else. Well, our group made 7 amazing dice rolls after another, and we somehow critically wounded the main antagonist and escaped. He admitted to us later that he had to rewrite the campaign to reintroduce another antagonist who surprised us later. It was good stuff. Yeah, I mean, hey, sometimes you just get lucky, you know? So, let's see. A story a friend told me. He had never played before, and was invited by one of our mutual friends to a D&D night. Of course, being a brand new character, he didn't really get to do a lot of fighting. They mostly just had him carry stuff. One of the things they gave him was a teleportation stone. The way it worked is that they would set an anchor point in a village or home base, and a stone could be used to open a portal to that spot for quick escapes. He decided to see what happened if he threw it into the ocean. Ended up displacing the whole ocean and flooded the world. Game over. Okay. I rolled a tanky human fighter once who was really scrappy and got into fights he couldn't win a lot. To make things less painful for the party's cleric, the DM eventually gave my character a 1 times a day boon that made him completely invulnerable to all non-magical damage for 10 minutes. Later on in the campaign, some shenanigans led to the group attempting and mostly succeeding in hijacking an airship. Think a hybrid Zeppelin/gunship. Near the end of the fight, I failed a dex save and went overboard. Was surrounded by maybe 15 really pissed off dudes, and the group's cleric yelled down at me to do the thing before launching a broadside volley at the spot where I was standing from the airship's gun deck. 1 round later, I was standing unscathed in the middle of a smoking crater with pulverized chunks of half-cooked bandit all around me. Yeah, I mean, in a weird way, it kind of reminds me of like the Halo power fist to the ground when a vehicle's coming and everything just crushes around you and you're fine. Alright, let's see. I was climbing a cliff face that was roughly 250 feet up while a dragon landed in front of the rest of the party. Right in front of the ladder that was used to get up the cliff. So I set down the item we were getting from said dragon's horde, pulled out 2 javelins, and jumped from the top of the cliff. The dragon was almost dead, so all I had to do was land on it. Well, as I was falling, the dragon decided that it was going to take off. It raised its head and opened its wings just as I was landing on it, and I killed the dragon. The only bad thing about this is the fact that it was 250 feet of free fall. I killed the dragon on impact and hit its skull so hard that it immediately killed me. My party made it out of the caves with my body, but they couldn't revive me. The only person besides myself that could be revived, or could revive me, rolled a natural 1 3 times in a row. Like, why do people write this? No, they did not. No one rolled a 1 3 times. I just... Alright. But I couldn't roll anything higher than a 5. So in the end I died, but I almost killed a dragon as my last act. I mean, it's a pretty epic ending, you know. If you are going to have your character die, at least the DM worked with the player and made it a really epic ending, you know. Okay, so oh boy, there's so many. This is what makes DnD. There was the time my players decided to storm a keep by setting it on fire and smoking out the enemies inside, then ambushing them as they ran out the front door. Except they forgot that the keep was made out of stone. Nice. Earlier in that game, the party was exploring an underground dungeon full of dead and undead plants. The druid decided to set them on fire. She ended up getting the dungeon on fire while they were still in it. She set the dungeon on fire 3 times. In my very first game, 3 of the characters were engaged in a prank war that culminated in the ranger and wizard placing a rotting pig corpse under each other's window. The warlock slipping porn into a bunch of documents, and the wizard prestidigitating the ranger to smell like tomcat piss. Ugh. In another game, the party was investigating a princess's bedroom. One of the characters accidentally poisoned herself on the booby-trapped chest. And when I described the nausea, they stopped their search for documents and began looking for something to cure the nausea. They spent half an hour finding and making peppermint tea. I mean, that is nice for nausea, isn't it? So, we were playing the early part of a campaign, and our party enters a temple where a bunch of people are sitting around on their knees, not paying attention to us and chanting. The DM describes the room, says there's a big circle drawn on the floor, and then says, "What do you guys do?" I asked him what the circle is made of, and he says, "Ash," or something similar. I say those magic words. I break the circle with my foot. Complete silence for about 15 seconds, and the DM begins grabbing books and flipping pages. Ends the night early and says that we got to get together next time the whole campaign will be going in an entirely new direction. Yeah, I broke the DM. Still hear that line, "I break the circle with my foot," from time to time. It makes me chuckle every time. One thing it taught me as a DM is that you can never plan for every eventuality. Alright, so this one's an evil campaign. The players are mostly drow, investigating mysteries across the Underdark. One is an evil cleric. He realized that he can command undead the first time the party encounters a group of skeletons very early in the game. He decides that it's really cool to have a skeleton army, and the rest of the party agrees. Anytime they find a weapon or armor the party doesn't want, they give it to one of the skeletons. Our cleric decides to name the captain of his skeleton army. He calls him Sasha. Weird name for a guy, though, isn't it? Several sessions later, the party kicks in the door of the wizard's tower. They make it to the top of the tower and the wizard's sanctum. The rogue decides to try to sneak into the sanctum and scope out the room. He opens the door and is unobserved. The rogue takes the opportunity to use his knockout poison to try and take out the wizard. He doesn't think it'll work, but it's worth a shot. It works. The wizard falls unconscious without a fight. The party then has to figure out what to do. The wizard won't stay unconscious for long, so they throw him out the window of the top floor of his own tower, onto the waiting spears of the cleric's skeleton army, who proceed to savage the unconscious wizard, culminating in Sasha holding the Death Warrior's head aloft as a trophy. In over a decade of playing D&D, nothing has come close to beating this tale. That's pretty good, though. That's good. Alright, so I was in a campaign with some zombies that survived from the party being level 5 to level 20. As we went, the DM gave the zombies more personality. It started with our necromancer using them as extras to play poker. The zombies really got into it and would play during downtime. Then they would shamble into towns to play. We gave the zombies hats of disguise, fooled more people than we thought it would. Some people caught on because of the smell. We had to run to save zombies a few times, and it was hilarious. They also had terrible cheaters who would try to hide cards up their tattered sleeves. At the end of the campaign, we put the zombies on their own boat with some pirate hats to have their own adventure. That's more wholesome than you would think. So I was DMing the party. My wife was playing a paladin with a hippogriff for her mount, and our friend was a barbarian. The party had accidentally stirred up the undead around Orc Village. They'd been forced to retreat into a box canyon, and the entrance to the canyon was completely blocked by hundreds of skeletons. Unfortunately, nobody had brought any blunt weapons, so all their attacks were suffering damage reduction. It was taking forever for them to do any real damage to any of the skeletons. The barbarian had a quick chat with the paladin. His suggestion was that she should get on her hippogriff, fly up about 100 feet, then jump off, curl into a ball, and drop into the skeletons to do bludgeoning damage to them. After all, he reasons, falling damage from that altitude would be about 10d6, but she'd cause 10d6 to any skeleton she hit. She hit multiple skeletons, and it'd probably kill a bunch of them. And then she actually did it. She really did do it. Flew up to 100 feet, shouted "Cowabunga," and jumped off, curled into a ball, and went rolling through the skeletons like a cannonball. Now, whenever they're facing difficult odds, the barbarian's first suggestion is, "Hey, paladin, remember when you went bowling for skeletons?" Yeah. That was pretty good. So this will be the last one. So I was DMing for a group of people who had never played before. They were all level 3 and had to go into a crypt for an ancient wingding for a quest. When they opened a sarcophagus to take the wingding, a lich animated and climbed out to fight them. They were all terrified. The lich started getting ready to cast a spell, really hammed it up, and then yelled, "Fireball!" and bashed them like a normal zombie attack. They quickly put him down and found his journal. Turns out he was a really rich noble who had spent a good deal of his fortune to try to get some unsavory individuals to ensure that when he died, he would come back as a powerful lich. Needless to say, that didn't happen. When he died, he just died. Years later, he was raised by a necromancer who had raised some other undead from the same crypt, but hadn't realized he was there and left him behind. Through a fluke, he was resurrected with a slightly higher intelligence than most zombies, and thought he had come back as a lich like he had worked for. He had carved shitty runes all over the walls of his crypt and had a little shitty wooden box that he had carved File Acatory. Needless to say, he was just a zombie with delusions of grandeur who would call out spell names or bash at people all through the fight. is my favorite. It's so good. It's just because it feeds into like the really zombies are just stupid, aren't they? All right. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. And until the next time.